This is the breakthrough that I've been waiting for that could revolutionize the way we do science forever. I wonder what would happen if I catalyze this reaction with this synthetic compound that I've created right here in this lab. Pray to Mary Curie that this works. Eureka! I've done it! Behold, the scientific board game. Hi, my name is Danny and welcome to my top 5 science-related board games countdown video. Today I would like to celebrate all of the wonderful board games out there that uses science as its theme at its core. Use 3 criteria to look at these board games and order them from first to fifth. First of all, I'm looking at the art and how the artists and the game designers have used the art to immerse the players in the scientific experience. Second of all, I'm looking at the mechanics and how well the mechanics simulate what a scientist would do in their day-to-day life, or whether the scientific concept illustrated is reflected in the actual mechanics themselves. And finally, I'm looking at the scientific thinking and the working scientifically skills that are married into the elements of the game and how well they engage the players as scientists. Number 5. Alchemists is a wonderful worker placement deduction style science game that allows players to collect ingredients, mix them together and try and deduce which ingredients match up with which alchemical. What I really love about this game is that you feel like you're a scientist, part of a scientific community. You get to put out theories, you get to publish theories, you get to debunk other people's theories and prove why they might be wrong or leading other people down the wrong track. You get to evoke that working scientifically and thinking scientifically skill where you deduce and eliminate possible outcomes which don't match with your results. You get to test things, the effect of drinking a potion that can make you sick, can send you to hospital. You've got an apprentice who can drink the potions for you, so it's a little bit cruel. There's a lot of choices that you can make, and you can actually even sell your potion mixtures to people who come to the actual town that this game is set in. It's very immersive. The game features this interesting mechanism where you can use your phone to take a photo of the 2 potions or ingredients that you're mixing together, and it gives you the result. So what you would do is you would take 2 of the ingredients, place it behind your screen, then using your phone you would align the pictures up, press confirm, and it tells you the result. And if you don't have a phone, there is a little structure that you can use that will help you determine all of the different alchemicals for the game. Number 4. Antidote is a social, semi-cooperative deduction game where players take on the roles of scientists in order to scramble around to find an antidote to a toxin that is floating around the lab that is threatening all of their lives. There's a little bit of a problem though. No one knows what the toxin is. So, players take a handful of cards and they take the lab rule sheet, and throughout the game they take one of 3 actions. They can either trade a card, they can pass a card around to the left or right, or they can discard a card, thereby bringing the game closer to its crescendo and closer to the end. There's a lot of suspense in this game, a lot of observation is required, and a lot of deduction and bluffing and communicating is quite important, especially if you want to survive with someone else and not just live your life as a lonely scientist. There's some really great illustrated cards which evoke that science theme. The cards are numbered and the cards indicate the value of your points at the end of the game. Obviously, if you choose the antidote and guess it correctly, you get plus points. If you choose the wrong antidote at the end of the game and you guess incorrectly, you get negative points, and that determines whether you die in the lab or you are free to live out your life. This game evokes a really great Cluedo type feel, and you feel like everyone is kind of against you, and it's a really quick game to play. It's for 2 to 7 players, so you can play with a big group of people or just a small group, and you can immerse yourself in that science theme and get that feeling that you often feel like if you're playing bigger box games like Dead of Winter. It's definitely replayable, and it's one of those games where there is more talk after the game than there is actually during the game, because everyone is competing and everyone is trying to win. I definitely think this is one that is not to try, but definitely to buy, and I wish I could put it further up my list, but there are some other excellent science-related games that I'm going to talk about next.
Number 3.
Compounded is an educational, set-collecting, resource management game where players trade elements, build compounds, and claim compounds as their own. They work as lab managers in order to manage other scientists using this workspace board, which kind of simulates like a lab or your lab bench, in order to claim the most victory points after completing the most number of compounds that are available on the field. So how this game works is players on their turn take resources, which are in the form of these gems from this bag, and there are different types of elements that are more common than others. So for example, hydrogen is one of the most common elements of the game, but the sulfur is probably one of the least common elements in the game. So if you're trying to build a compound that has sulfur in it, you do need to work a little bit harder. However, those points that you get from pursuing a compound with sulfur in it is more worthwhile and gives you more points in the long run. The players take their little resources, place them onto this little board, and then there's 4 different phases: discovery, study phase, research phase, and then you get to resolve everything that is on the field. As you are competing to improve your lab efficiency and your lab status, the options that are available to each player becomes more numerous and more expansive. And I like how the mechanics in this game really simulate the day-to-day life of a chemist in a more simplified yet enjoyable and functional way. Players can discover elements. They can then claim compounds that they believe that they can actually complete or contribute to, or then they can place them onto compounds and actually complete ones that are already claimed or ones that are unclaimed and therefore claim it for themselves. Now, victory points are recorded on this victory point track, which looks beautiful because it is really a periodic table, and periodic numbers actually relate to the number of points that you get throughout the game. It's incredibly educational. A lot of the compounds have the correct structures, the valencies, the actual state of matter, whether it's solid, liquid, or gas, and some of its properties in terms of whether it's volatile or not. For example, this formaldehyde can actually cause a lab fire in your game. So, you know, a lab fire can actually destroy other compounds that are flammable as well, thereby jeopardizing what compounds can be completed in the lab. The lab itself has some really great benefits, so you can get lab goggles, pipettes, Bunsen burners, things that really enhance the level of the game and the options that are available.
Number 2.
My number 2 game is Pandemic, with a twist. It's actually Pandemic, the base game, with the In the Lab expansion on top. Now, for those people who are not familiar with the original Pandemic game, Pandemic is a fully cooperative game where players take on the roles of virologists, researchers, pilots, quarantine specialists, and they go around the world combating disease, preventing epidemics, preventing an outbreak from occurring, and ultimately stopping a snowball effect occurring and resulting in a pandemic. In the original game, the issue that I had was that players, when they cured disease, would have to build a research station, trade in some cards, and all of a sudden the disease would be magically cured. And I don't think that really happens in real life, of course. So what I really like about the In the Lab challenge module, and there's several modules in this expansion, is the fact that now that when you go to a research station, not only do you have to go there and trade in cards, but you have to characterize the disease, then you have to sequence the disease, then develop a vaccine and then test it out in the community. And then once that has been tested and it is successful, you can then cure the disease by releasing the vaccine. To me, that makes so much more thematic sense, It adds an element of extra tension in terms of the cube management, because you're taking cubes from the board and the cubes from the actual box, and that if you run out of cubes, all the players are doomed. So that adds an extra level to that ticket timer effect, which makes this game so much fun. The lab challenge really immerses you in that experience. You do really feel like you're battling against time and battling against the diseases that are mutating and outbreaking all across the world. And the art is incredibly rich and really evokes that nice science theme. If you just want to play the lab challenge with the base game, you can. You don't need the On the Brink expansion. But if you do want to play with the other modules in the lab expansion, you do need the On the Brink expansion. So the Pandemic has quite a few expansion packs that kind of work and interlock with each other. Fantastic theme, really feel like a lab scientist, makes more sense, and really takes this game to a much higher and deeper and makes it so much more entertaining. In order to find out my favorite #1 science-related board game, it's time to mix these chemicals together. Evolution, the board game, is my #1 game on this list.
Number 1.
Evolution is a card hand management game that has so much layers and so many different options and combinations for players to use in order to develop a winning strategy. The game earns its title as my #1 game because of the way it mimics evolution, in terms of the fact that you have these species that have these traits that you decide in your combinations, and each species can have up to 3 traits, and encouraging those species to survive based on the amount of food that's in the water hole, and then adapting to the changing environment so that when the food becomes more scarce, does that animal survive, or could it change into a carnivore and eat other animals, thereby reducing their population and their body size? So there's that true sense of competition, adaptation, and hierarchy as players create all these species with all these different traits. They try to evolve them, and they try to survive as the conditions of the game can change. In fact, even the rulebook references Darwin's theory of evolution, and it just feels like the game creators have researched the content. They are really interested in evolutionary theory, that they've incorporated those into the mechanics of the game. I like how the players have to adapt their species, and the fact that there's a lot of synergy within the different combinations of the cards, and you can actually get up to 2,000 or more different combinations with just the base game set alone. Every time you play, there's different levels of strategy or different avenues for trying to win in terms of eating the most food. Really adds to that level of gameplay. What I really also love is the fact that you can become a carnivore, you can be an omnivore, you can be a herbivore. As a carnivore, you can't eat the vegetation in the middle, you have to eat other species, which creates this really great balancing mechanism. It's like social and hierarchy, order in the natural world. Not to mention, it's beautifully illustrated. It's one that just evokes such feelings of scientific emotion as you play the game. I really get lost in this game. It's fun, fast, easy to learn. It's so easy to teach. The rules are super simple. You can teach it in about 5 minutes, and as you play several games, you really uncover the layer of depth and strategy that this game has to offer. There is an expansion pack to Evolution. It's Evolution Flight, where players can use the ability to fly as a trait for escaping those ground carnivores in the base game. It does require a little bit more of investment in terms of your resources and using your cards, but it's definitely well worth exploring. And I know on Kickstarter they've got another standalone box game called Evolution Climate, which uses the weather and temperature as a way of balancing it out. Thank you for joining me for another top 5 board game list. If you really like my videos, please subscribe, and I'll try and get some more videos out to you soon. This is Danny signing out. Goodbye.